Hi everyone, our lesson today is going to be about dialogue, and our objective is to integrate dialogue into our alternate endings to show an emotional moment in our stories. So, as a reminder, dialogue is what characters are saying in a text. We can understand a lot about a character through dialogue because it shows that character's feelings, their attitude, or a conflict that they might have with another character. Before we start writing dialogue, it's important to know how to format it, so how we punctuate the dialogue. I want you to notice there are two different ways for us to do dialogue. The first way is we begin the dialogue with who is speaking. So she said. After she said, I'm going to place a comma there. Then I have my first quotation and I'm capitalizing the first word of the dialogue. Let's go to town. Then I have the end punctuation. Notice how it is inside of the closed quotation here. That's one way to create dialogue. Another way to format dialogue is to start with what the character is saying. Here we start with the open quotation. Here's what the character says. This is my wagon. I'm not going to put a period or an exclamation point here. I'm going to put a comma. I have my quotation here. Then he said, period. All right. So my first word here is not capitalized, but if the first word is somebody's name, that of course would be capitalized. Each new piece of dialogue should start its own paragraph. So I should never see dialogue inside of a paragraph. It's kind of like its own individual sentence. All right, let's talk about that word said. If we have dialogue where we repeatedly say said over and over again, it's boring and it doesn't really show us the character's feelings or attitude. So we want to move away from using said and we want to use one of these words instead, which tells us how they said something. So you'll notice they're all by categories, and you can use the category to find a better word to say said. So, say one of your characters is saying something in an angry way. Maybe they demanded something. Maybe they thundered, they barked, they grunted. Are they speaking loudly? Are they shouting? Are they yelling? Are they asking a question? Here are different words that I want you to use. I do not want you to use said to give your dialogue. So we want to figure out in our alternate endings, where should we add dialogue? We want to think about a place that's an emotional moment, and that would be better for us to hear the characters what they're saying instead of just reading about it. So let's read an example from a student from last year. 3 wolves were coming, and then the wolf saw 2 men stuck under a tree. The wolves were running very fast because they didn't notice that the men couldn't move. The 2 men were crying to God so they can live one more day, and they promised if they live, they would never fight again. Then there was a huge gust of wind that knocked down a tree, trapping the wolves. Well, there's a pretty obvious place where there could be dialogue because the person is describing them talking. So this is where instead of describing what's happening, I would suggest that the student include dialogue. And here's the type of dialogue they might include. Oh God, if you exist, please save us, Ulrich stammered. Please, we have learned our lesson. We have had a reconciliation, Georg pleaded. We promise to never fight again. We know that this feud was unnecessary, Ulrich cried. George, I can't read the last part, whispered, we are truly sorry. So, this now we have dialogue that's really showing us what's happening in the story. We're able to understand the character's emotions by how they're saying something and what they're saying. So today you're going to do the same thing. You're going to be integrating dialogue, but first let's get all of our documents that we need. We need 3 documents today to do this work. The first thing we need is our planning document that you did on Tuesday, and that's going to help you find your story, what you've planned so far. Next, you're going to find your dialogue notes. And then lastly, you're going to find your alternate ending draft. So I'm going to come over here. Here is my classwork from Tuesday. I have my planning document right here. So I'm going to open that. Inside this document, you should have already written down, maybe in one sentence, what's going to happen in your alternate ending. This is going to help keep you on track. The next place you're going to go is to this part. That's where we have all the documents for this assignment. So another helpful document that you might want to have is the dialogue notes. So that's everything that I put in this PowerPoint so that you're able to be successful when formatting and when using other words than said. So you'll notice here it has the examples that we looked at once it loads for how to format the dialogue. So you can refer back to that. And then on the second page, that's where it's the set is dead page. So you can use these words in your dialogue. And of course, the last thing you need is your draft because that's where you're going to be writing. So you're going to open up that draft, which you should have here. When you open up your document, if you're on track, you should already have MLA formatting, and you should have written your climax already because that's what we wrote last class. Today, your assignment is to finish writing the alternate ending. So if you finished writing the climax, that means you're writing the falling action and you're writing the resolution. And within any of those paragraphs, I need you to include two pieces of dialogue. So I need some places where a character is talking. The good thing about dialogue is it easily makes your alternate ending longer because each piece of dialogue should start a new line on your document. So that's what you're going to finish today. As you're writing the next parts, keep in mind that show, not tell strategy that we talked about last class because we want the story to sound as similar to the original story as possible. If you have any questions, please contact me via email, Remind, or on Google Classroom. I'll talk to you soon.